everybody. So today we are going to talk about how to install the Configuration Manager client manually. Stay tuned. Okay, so the other videos we have done, they are all about setting up Configuration Manager. And in today's video is the first video that we're going to talk about installing Configuration Manager client. There are many ways that we can install Configuration Manager client. We can install manually, like we are going to do today, through OS deployment, client push, software update, Active Directory scripts, and so on. But not that they are more complex, because they are really simple to do anyway, but the manual installation will help you to understand exactly what is happening. Also, in case of troubleshooting, you know exactly what you need to do. And between quotes here, it's the least problematic one in terms of firewalls, ports, and so on, because it's the communication that Configuration Manager and the client will have anyway. The only problem here, you need to be local admin on the client machine. But this will give you an overview exactly what the process is and how the process works. If you look at the documentation, we have here, the first one is how to deploy Configuration Manager clients on a computer, on the Windows computer. And like I said, we have client push, we have software update, it's here, software update base installation, grow policy, we can have scripts, also could be through grow policy as well, could be just a normal PowerShell deployed via another management solution. And we have down the manual installation. When we're looking at the manual installation, we need to use a software called ccmsetup.exe that we're going to get this from the Configuration Manager server. We put somewhere in the network or on the client. And there are some parameters or properties that we can use to tell the client on what exactly needs to happen and how it needs to happen. Imagine that you have a multiple Configuration Manager environment with, let's say, multiple sites or multiple servers. You need to point to the right site or to the right server. So this is how you use the command line. If HTTPS or HTTP, that's not it's our case, you can actually change the way that the Configuration Manager behaves, or the Configuration Manager client installation behaves. Also, to know about those properties, of course, there are a documentation is about client installation parameters and properties. And here we can see there are plenty of parameters and properties we can actually use, and depends on what installation we are doing. But not all parameters and properties you can actually pass to the client. This information can also be used in Active Directory. So you can actually publish this information in Active Directory through the client push. And then you don't need, and they're going to be used for the client push and client software update point Active Directory. It's not our case here right now, but just remember that this is a possibility. And the last one, what I want to show you is the clients, the logs. The logs we are going to use here, if you go to the logs documentation, log file reference and client installation. The main log is a ccmsetup.log, but there are few other logs that we are going to use throughout this video, and they will give you a lot of information when something goes wrong, or you need to troubleshoot something. Anyway, let's go to our environment. Here on the Configuration Manager server, what I want to show you here in devices, so assets and compliant devices, we don't have the workstation 01 listed. What we have is just the server 2, 3, and 4, because they are part of the Configuration Manager infrastructure. And shortly, as soon as we start installing the workstation 01 will appear here. Also, what I'm doing here is I copied this file ccmsetup.exe that comes from where you install Configuration Manager, in my case, the D program files Microsoft Configuration Manager, and there is a folder called client. I didn't copy all the files, I only copied one file because I want to show you exactly what's the process. You don't need to have all, you could have to save actually network bandwidth when copying those extra files. And I copied this to the C temp on the client. If you go now to the Configuration Manager client on the C temp, you can see here that there is the ccmsetup.exe file. So let me just show you the extension. So we have that. So now we just need to start the process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the command prompt as administrator. This could be also PowerShell. Yeah, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to browse to that location, and I'm going to use the ccmsetup.exe. There are some parameters and properties I need to use. So what I'm going to do, I'm going back here to the documentation, and where we say deploy the client, you can see here what normally Microsoft recommends could be managing point, but what I'm going to do only use is the SMS site code equals, and I'm going to tell what is the site code we are going to use. I will not leave as auto. I'm going to actually tell connect to this specific configuration manager site. And in your case here is the P, let's remember what the site code is. And we have here on the top is P01. But if you don't know, just go to administration, site configuration, sites. And you can see here we have our site code P01. So let's go there, P01. Of course, if you want to force connect to a specific management point, you connect to, now you can do that. So in your case here, this is enough for us to start the installation. So I'm going to press enter and nothing happened. So if you go into this task manager, the first thing you can notice is we have here a CCM setup in memory. So it's already happening something. And if you browse to C, Windows, CCM setup, is now something is happening. You can see here lots of extra files that didn't have. If you go to logs, you have now more logs, and the main one is the ccmsetup.log. So I'm going to open here. Of course, if you will open with CMTrace, it's much easier to read. But what I want to show you here is as soon as we do the execute the ccmsetup.exe, it downloads it itself. You can see here file download to see Windows CCM setup, and then execute it from there. There is a service also that's been created in case of retries and so on. If you don't want that to happen, if you go back to the parameters, here there is a no service. Let's go down. No service. So then basically tells do not run a service. But below that, there are so many information. The client will query Active Directory. We'll discover what's the server. We can see here found management point 04. Again, I could, if I have multiple management points, I could start pointing this client to a specific management point. But after that, we start downloading. Let me just find here. We will start downloading some files from the management point and add those files to the list. And then as soon as download, you can see here all the files have been downloaded. In your case here was really fast, but it's not always the case. And as soon as the installation finished, you can see here the ccmexec executed, so the installation is completed. But the configuration manager client is not yet communicate with the configuration manager server, because this is the second part of the installation. But as part of the installation, two things happen. The first one, we have now here, if I scroll down, where is it? Let me just search here. We have the software center, software center. As soon as it's update this list, I will show you shortly. So here on the Windows, we have the CCM folder, is where everything happens. There is a log, and most interesting, there is a ccmsetup.exe software. So then we can actually start using to read the logs. On the control panel, there is a new icon. Is for the configuration manager. And if I open, this is the first time, you can see here things already started happening. In your environment, it will not be that quickly. So we are going to just see two actions at the beginning, but later on those actions will happen, and you'll see a lot more. But on the side, you can see here I already have the P01. Hopefully now the software center has already been installed. Yep, we have it here. Software center is already being installed. So one of the tools that we are going to use through the configuration manager environment. You can see here Microsoft Endpoint Manager, basically just the software center. Okay, so what we did today is we just manually install and point to a specific site, no other information. But if you use, like the documentation said, auto, how the client knows which site it needs to connect to? So if I go back to the configuration manager server and boundaries and boundary group, this is something that I didn't show you last time. We have this option here in the references. Use this boundary for group site assignment. So I can tell if the server or the client being installed is in this set of IP ranks, IP subnets, and so on and so forth, automatically tell you're going to connect to this specific site if you use the auto. But this is for more a large environment. We have multiple sites. The downside on that could be if once computer moves from one location to another, it may start connected to different sites, could be a mess. Also, this could be that you have a overlapping boundaries, but this is something later on we're going to discuss in a future video. But right now, what I want to show you, if we go back here to assets and compliance, devices, you can see here, I have already a desktop, whatever the name is, and it's the client. We don't have a lot of information yet because the client still communicate with the server. So it takes roughly about half an hour for everything to happen. But yeah, the installation happened. The client's already communicating. I can see here on the configuration manager console, and everything is so far happy and without major problems. So as you saw, installing the configuration manager client does not require a lot. But if you do this manually, the person, the script, or whatever tool you are using needs to have the local admin rights. Other than that, it's quite simple. Just remember to use exactly the correct command lines. And if you have a multiple configuration manager environment, make sure your boundaries are set correctly, boundaries and boundary groups. If you don't know exactly what those things are, just check out this video. I will also link the video about boundaries and boundary group in the description below. Thank you very much. And if you get any value out of this video, just remember to smash the like button. See you on the next one.